our lead story tonight. What actually happened on the night of the 8th and 9th December in Tawang in Arunachal Pradesh? Let's go across to Vishnu and Ankit who are tracking that story. Vishnu, what are the details we have?
Well, at this stage, what we know is that the government of India, the defense minister in parliament, actually made it absolutely clear that this was not an ordinary situation. This was a straightforward attempt at a Chinese land grab. He says that this was an attempt to alter the lay of the line of actual control, also known as the McMahon line in Arunachal Pradesh. Now, there have been skirmishes in the recent past. There have been fisticuffs in the recent past as well, even after Galwan. But this is different, and it is different because this was an attempt by China to get into Indian territory within our perception of the LAC and make changes there. That is unacceptable. So the bottom line is this: Indian soldiers repulsed that effort. The Chinese were actually sent back to their territory. That said, the area is tense right now. There are combat air patrols being flown by the Indian Air Force as well because of heightened activity on the Chinese side.
So that's what the explainer is, Vishnu, on what actually is happening. But what are the details we're hearing that there were on the number of troops, the fact that Indian forces fought back, even though the number of Chinese troops were more on the ground. Also the fact that this comes after that handshake between Prime Minister Modi and President Xi in Bali. So what was China's larger plan behind this altering the status quo? Or trying to alter the status quo?
Well, China has been trying to gain territory within Arunachal Pradesh through salami slicing, which was a term coined by the former Chief of Defence Staff Bipin Rawat. They've done this by constructing villages within our territory. They're trying to alter the status quo in an area which has traditionally been disputed. But in terms of the actual fight which took place, the numbers are unclear. There have been reports that the Chinese could even have had 600 odd people. But the army, in speaking to us, repeated queries have said they don't have any comment or any specific numbers that they can share. But this Indian effort has resulted in the Chinese being repulsed. Asked specific questions on whether there was any firing on either side, they said not that they were aware of. Asked whether tasers were used, asked whether the Chinese had come in with batons, with spikes installed on them. They again said that no, that was not the case. There was violence, there was stone pelting which took place, there were fisticuffs which took place, and yes, batons would have been used on both sides. The injuries would, for a common person, have been fairly serious, but the army does say that no lives were lost, as you mentioned, and that the injuries, according to the army, were not very serious. But obviously tensions in that area would remain. But I think the bottom line is this: our territory remains ours, and that this effort by the Chinese to unilaterally alter the status of the LAC, which in simple terms is a land grab, has been repulsed by the Indian army.
In fact, Ankit, before we come to you, because there's also that other disturbing news of China again trying air intrusions as well. But let's just look at what happened in Parliament today and what India's defense minister said.
Please, my
Opposition protests in Parliament demanding answers to the latest Chinese aggression. This time in Tawang last Friday, the government acknowledged what it called the sentiment of the House.
Looking at the gravity of the situation,
While exact details of the clash have not been stated, there have been no fatalities nor serious casualties on the Indian side. The defense minister told this to Parliament. Some of those injured were flown to this hospital in Guwahati. Mr. Rajnath Singh says China tried to unilaterally change the status quo. In simpler terms, that would mean an attempted land grab by China, which has been repulsed by Indian soldiers.
9 दिसंबर 2022 को पीएलए ट्रुप्स ने तवांग सेक्टर के यांगसे एरिया में लाइन ऑफ एक्चुअल कंट्रोल पर अतिक्रमण कर स्टेटस को एक तरफा बदलने का प्रयास किया। चाइना के इस प्रयास का हमारी सेना ने दृढ़ता के साथ सामना किया है, अध्यक्ष महोदय, और इस फेस ऑफ में हाथापाई भी हुई है। भारतीय सेना ने बहादुरी से पीएलए को हमारी टेरिटरी में अतिक्रमण करने से रोका और उन्हें उनकी पोस्ट पर वापस जाने के लिए मजबूर कर दिया, अध्यक्ष महोदय। इस झड़प में दोनों ओर के कुछ सैनिकों को चोटें भी आई हैं और मैं इस सदन को अवगत कराना चाहता हूं कि हमारे किसी भी सैनिक की न तो मृत्यु हुई है और न ही कोई गंभीर रूप से घायल हुआ है।
However, immediately after the defense minister's statement, the speaker and the chairperson rejected the opposition's demand for a discussion, saying House procedures do not permit discussions on statements. The opposition protested and walked out.
हम उसमें क्या कमियां हैं और हमारे पास जो इंफॉर्मेशन है वो शेयर करना चाहते थे, लेकिन उन्होंने छोड़ दिया।
Defence Minister Rajnath Singh, before making a statement in the Parliament, convened a high-level meeting with Chief of Defence Staff, 3 chiefs, and also with the Minister of External Affairs to take stock of the situation. Government sources say that the government has decided to raise this issue with the Chinese side through diplomatic channels also.
In a terse comment, Chinese Foreign Ministry has described the border situation as generally stable, claiming the two sides have maintained a smooth communication on the border issues through diplomatic and military channels. This is the first fierce clash after Galwan, which occurred in June 2020. And in the face of almost every major opposition party demanding discussion on the issue adjourning all other businesses, the Home Minister turned his focus to attacking the Congress and its past governments and the past China policy. Mr. Shah alleged that the reason why Congress disrupted the question hour in Lok Sabha was because of Chinese funds given to the Rajiv Gandhi Foundation over 15 years ago.
पटल पर भी बताता कि राजीव गांधी फाउंडेशन 2005-6 और 6-7 के वित्तीय साल में चीनी दूतावास से 1.35 करोड़ रुपए का अनुदान प्राप्त हुआ।
The Rajiv Gandhi Foundation donation is not the cause of the Chinese intrusion in Arunachal Pradesh.
Union Defence Minister Rajnath Singh said that due to timely intervention of Indian military commanders, the Chinese troops went back to their locations. And also in the flag meeting, the Chinese side has been asked to refrain from such actions and also to maintain peace and tranquility along the border. With camera person Pawan Tiwari, this is Arvind Gunasekar for NDTV.
Ankit, also more details coming in on the fact that China also attempted intrusions by air. What are the details you have on that and how unusual is that?
That's quite unusual, and it also tells you the heightened sense of urgency and tensions along the LAC. Now, let me very quickly, in fact, tell our viewers where exactly did this take place. This is the Tawang area, the border area in Arunachal Pradesh, the Yangtze sector, where, in fact, these skirmishes have been reported on 9 December. Now, what happened, in fact, after that, very quickly, the Defence Minister, of course, as Vishnu was also telling us, gave a statement today, and he said the Chinese troop tried to transgress the LAC and unilaterally change the status quo. That, in simple terms, means that they were trying for a land grab operation, and sources, in fact, also suggesting that because of winters, the Indian troops come down, so the Chinese were trying to occupy a few peaks in this area. Now, while you are talking about the Air Force, that also, in fact, in the last few weeks, there has been many attempts as far as the Chinese Air Force is concerned. We have seen heightened, sources have told in the NDTV that Indian Air Force have been flying active combat patrol duties, air patrols over the Arunachal Pradesh area. And why are they doing that? Because there is heightened, the Indian Air Force has detected heightened and enhanced Chinese air activeness across the LAC in Arunachal Pradesh. In fact, sources going on to suggest that the IAF launched fighters 2 to 3 times in the last few weeks to prevent airspace violation by the Chinese Air Force. So these are very, very tense moments as far as the LAC is concerned between India and China. Moreover, what more details which are coming in as far as this entire transgression is concerned? So far, no details. Vishnu has been trying, but no details on the number of troops involved in the scuffle. We don't know the number of injured, neither the nature of injuries, though the Defence Minister has very clearly said that no Indian soldier has been killed or seriously wounded in these skirmishes between the Indian and Chinese forces. Those who have been injured are right now recuperating at the Guwahati military hospital. That is where they are being treated. Now, just going forward and talking a little bit more about what the sources have told us, they have so far denied that tasers or clubs or any knuckle busters and all those things that we saw being used in Galwan. That's not, at least as of now, the sources are saying have not been used in this fight. It was a very intense hand-to-hand combat which went on for a few hours, and the result was the Indian soldiers pushing the Chinese back to their post. Apart from this, there is why is this happening? The differences in the perception of the claim lines at few points along the 3,000-kilometer line of actual control has caused tensions between both the sides, New Delhi and Beijing. This is something that both the sides have been trying to resolve for a very, very long time. But specifically now, talking about the politics of all this, tomorrow there is going to be an important meeting of the opposition. This issue is going to have a lot of clamor in the parliament tomorrow as well, Sonia.
Right, Ankit and Vishnu, thanks so much for those updates. As we said, we're proud of the Indian troops who repulsed those Chinese troops, and also the fact that there have been no injuries and no deaths on the Indian side, unlike what happened in Galwan. Moving on to other headlines. Well, the airport chaos in India's national capital, Terminal 3 of the Delhi airport, a day after Aviation Minister Jyotiraditya Scindia's visit to the airport. Today, a stern message from the government to airlines saying that it's been discovered that check-in counters are unmanned during the early morning hours or inadequately manned at some airports. Now remember, of course, early morning are peak hours for both international and domestic flights. Airlines have been told to deploy sufficient manpower at check-in counters and also to give real-time data on social media feeds on the waiting time for passengers and waiting time at entry gates. Our special focus tonight, and this really is the tragedy of the Kota factories, India's coaching center capital, where students come from all across the country to prepare for competitive exams for IITs and even the national entrance medical exam. Here, 3 young students, 3 lives have been lost as they apparently died by suicide yesterday, according to police. Today, their distraught parents came to pick up the bodies of their children. What is the larger problem here that we just aren't addressing?
A father breaks down at the mortuary in Kota as he stands outside to identify the body of his 16-year-old son who was preparing for the IIT exams. The child committed suicide in his hostel room. His father, a contractor from Bihar's Gaya, says he always told his son he could come home if he couldn't cope with the pressure.
अगर मन नहीं लगता है तो खर्चा होने से मतलब नहीं है, हमारे घर पर वेलकम तुम्हारा रहेगा, जिस दिन आ जाओगे उस दिन कोई दिक्कत नहीं मेरा.
But clearly that was not an option Ujjwal decided to take. Not one but 3 suicides have rocked Kota city. Ankush, a 17-year-old boy whose mother is a school teacher and father also a contractor. And Pranav from Shivpuri in Madhya Pradesh, his family runs a small sanitary business. Children from small towns here to fulfill dreams of cracking the IIT exams and making it through medical school. At this hostel where 2 boys committed suicide a few hours apart, a sense of shock and disbelief, even panic.
कल तो देख के मेरा भी मतलब कांपने लगा. हाँ, एक माँ के हिसाब से सोच रहे थे ना कि एक माँ कैसे अपने बच्चे को, कल का स्थिति आप देखते तो आपको भी अगर माँ है तो आपको भी रोना आ जाता.
मेरे बच्चे भी तो उसी एज के हैं, मेरे बच्चे भी तो इसी एज के हैं.
उसको देख के मैं इतना घबरा गई थी कि अपने बच्चे को क्या संभालती, मैं खुद भी अपने आप को नहीं संभाल पा रही थी.
टाइम टेबल को जैसे मतलब मैनेज नहीं कर पाते हैं, ज़्यादा देर सो लेते हैं तो नहीं हो पाता है.
अच्छा, ज़्यादा देर सो जाते हो तो फिर वो टाइम टेबल आउट ऑफ हैंड चला जाता है.
हाँ, तो हम लोग का वही क्वेश्चन ज़्यादा नहीं लग पाता है, और ये टाइम टेबल मैनेजमेंट 1 घंटा ज़्यादा सो लिए तो फिर आगे का फिर कैसे करें.
The stress is exacting, the competition cutthroat, and away from home, these children as young as 16 and 17 are vulnerable.
अकेलापन मतलब कोई दोस्त सब अलग अलग जगह से, कोई अपना मतलब आदमी नहीं, माँ बाप, तो अकेलापन तो.
It's clearly this loneliness that kills that has left the administration groping for answers. The administration has called for a high-level meeting to address the issue.
इस बार जब से कोविड का दौर समाप्त हुआ तो एकदम से बूम आया और कम से कम 2-2.5 लाख बच्चे हैं जो एक तरह की फ्लोटिंग पॉपुलेशन है. यहाँ पर अभी कोई ऐसा हॉस्टल नहीं है जो खाली हो.
Kota has a population of nearly 2.5 lakh students. Hostels and paying guest accommodations have mushroomed across the city, unregulated, unstructured, a way to make a quick buck.
मैम अकेलापन का मतलब पढ़ाई तो सही है लेकिन यहाँ थोड़ा ज़्यादा माहौल सही नहीं रहता है बच्चों को मतलब तुम उतना पढ़ रहे हो तो हम इतना पढ़ेंगे.
Kota, where nearly 2.5 lakh children come each year with dreams in their eyes. Dreams of either making it through medical college or cracking the IITG exams. The schedule and timetable is exacting. Students study for nearly 15 to 16 hours each day. And if 1 hour is spent on extra sleep or having some fun, it can throw their schedule out of gear. And then the examination, cutthroat competition. Of the 10 lakh students who give the IIT exams, only 16,000 plus make it to the top IITs in the country. And in this rat race, some of course make it, but some tragically drop out. With cameraman Xavier Thomas in Kota, Harsha Kumari Singh for NDTV.
Can cracking any exam compensate for those young lives lost? Well, in other news, Bihar Chief Minister Nitish Kumar has virtually declared that he will be handing over his political inheritor, will be Deputy Chief Minister Tejasvi Yadav. He said at a function that Tejasvi Yadav would lead the coalition in the 2025 Bihar elections.
आपने सर कहा है सर 2025 में बिहार करेंगे एकदम करेगा समझ गए ना सर
So Nitish Kumar handing over his political mantle in a sense to the son of Lalu Prasad Yadav, at one time his arch rival. But in Tamil Nadu, the controversy is over the sunrise of the chief minister, as Udayanidhi Stalin readies to take oath as minister tomorrow.
Udayanidhi Stalin on the campaign trail in the Chennai constituency he fought and won from in the 2021 Tamil Nadu elections. Now, a year later, Udayanidhi set to become a minister in his father's cabinet. The rise of a new generation of the Karunanidhi dynasty, which already has a pervasive presence in Tamil Nadu politics across 4 generations. When we spoke to him in August, ahead of the Chess Olympiad grand finale he coordinated, he defended charges of dynastic capture.
How would you react to the criticism that you are part of the dynastic politics just because you are son of Mr. Stalin?
Let the people of Chepak Trivali decide that.
Until now, Uday, as is known, has stayed away from active politics. Known more for running Red Giant Movies, one of Tamil film industry's biggest production houses, producing smash hits like Kurubi, Adhuban and Manmadan Anbu. Many have pointed to how Udayanidhi's father, M.K. Stalin, was made to wait much longer for a ministerial berth at the age of 53. Udayanidhi's supporters argue he has the experience to earn the ministerial berth, enrolling around 25 lakh youngsters in the DMK's youth wing. But the leader of the opposition was critical of the move.
ஊழல் நடைபெற்றுக் கொண்டிருக்கிறது. இவர் வந்தால் அந்த ஊழலுக்கெல்லாம் தலைவராக இருந்து செயல்படுவார். அது ஒண்ணுதான் நடக்கும். வேற என்ன நடக்க போகுது? ஆக குடும்ப ஆட்சிக்கு முடிவு கட்ட வேண்டும்.
Udayanidhi's elevation is a clear signal that he is number 2 after M.K. Stalin, while Kanimoli is a deputy general secretary in the party, the face at Delhi. The big question, will the cadre accept this superseding? In Chennai with Suresh, Sam Daniel, Find the TV.
A quick look at other news. Well, markets are up as inflation is down. The Sensex up by 402 points. The Nifty gaining 110 points. PSU bank shares gained the most. The rupee, however, weakened, ending at 82 rupees 80 paise to the dollar. Internationally, US inflation has also eased sharply to 7.1%, down 0.6% from October. Well, this is the first in the world as New Zealand plans to go completely smoking free. They've imposed a ban on young people buying cigarettes. So it's now a law passed by the parliament that if you're born after 2009, you can't buy tobacco.
New Zealand's unique plan to phase out smoking by imposing a lifetime ban on young people buying cigarettes.
Smoke-free environments and regulated products, Smoke Tobacco Amendment Bill, they're ready.
The law states that tobacco can't ever be sold to anybody born on or after January 1st, 2009. This essentially means the minimum age for buying cigarettes will continue to rise. In theory, somebody trying to buy a pack of cigarettes 50 years from now would need an ID to show they were at least 63 years old. But health authorities hope smoking will fade away well before then. They have stated the goal of making New Zealand smoke-free by 2025. The new law also reduces the number of retailers allowed to sell tobacco from about 6,000 to just 600 and decreases the amount of nicotine allowed in tobacco that is smoked. Bureau Report, NDTV.